I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.
Hello and welcome to another installment of Liberty Nation's Swamponomics videocast. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor. This week, stop the presses, America drowning in the deficit swamp. In the last fiscal year, the US government ran a $1.7 trillion budget deficit, more than 20% higher than the previous year and much higher than the White House's forecast. Looking ahead to the end of the current fiscal year 2024, the administration anticipates the deficit will be more than $1.8 trillion. Will this forecast be accurate? Not quite, according to some economists. In fact, one economist believes the shortfall will be as high as $3 trillion. Time will tell if this turns out to be accurate. For now, the first month of the current fiscal year revealed that the US government ran a higher than expected budget deficit of $67 billion, slightly more than the Congressional Budget Office's monthly budget review of $65 billion. Here's a specific look at some of the numbers. First, Social Security topped all spending, but the second largest budgetary item was interest, hitting $88 billion, higher than Medicare, income security, and national defense. Second, this was the smallest budget deficit for this time of the year since 2017. But why? Tax receipts ballooned by 27%, thanks to delayed tax payments from California and several other states that are beginning to finally roll in. Third, outlays continue to climb, rising 16% year over year to $470 billion. Lastly, the US government is borrowing about $2 billion a day to fund the government. Of course, these are the headline figures. What is important is to dig deeper into what is transpiring throughout the financial markets. One of the biggest events for Wall Street these days is the Treasury auctions. These are events whereby the Treasury sells government bonds to investors. Over the past month and change, as Liberty Nation has reported, investor demand has been incredibly weak. Recently, the Treasury held auctions for the benchmark 10-year bond and the 30-year bond. The results? Meh and bad. First, the $40 billion auction for 10 years was uneventful, matching market expectations and limiting the damage thanks to relatively healthy investor demand. Second, the $24 billion Treasury auction of 30-year Treasuries saw a yield of just below 4.77%. This was about 5 basis points higher than the market estimate. The main headline from that event, though, was that primary dealers, which are institutions that buy supply not purchased by investors, acquired about a quarter of the debt. Now, the average over the last year has been around 12%, so we're talking about more than double. So, if there is subdued demand in the markets for government debt, does this mean Fed Chair Jerome Powell will save the day? For now, this does not appear to be the case. The Federal Reserve is in the early stages of trimming its $9 trillion balance sheet by offloading its Treasury holdings. It is still a long way from where the balance sheet stood before the coronavirus pandemic. Since the Fed launched its quantitative tightening campaign in March 2022, the balance sheet has been lowered by about $1 trillion. In other words, the printing press will be on hold for at least another year. So at this point, what are the other options? The federal government cannot raise taxes to plug the gaping holes because revenues have been steadily falling over the past year. Dramatically cut spending? For Republicans and Democrats, this is not an option at all. The only bipartisan proposal that the two parties deliver is something like the Debt Ceiling Agreement, or the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which achieved very little for the nation's long-term finances. Sure, everyone and their mother can agree that Washington spends like drunken sailors, but does anyone possess the will to become fiscally sober? In America, it is perpetually a lost weekend. That's it for this week. Please read my full Swamponomics column on the pages of LibertyNation.com, and be sure to check out my previous Swamponomics TV interviews. Thank you. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at LibertyNation.com. publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are LibertyNation.com.